I want to introduce you now to Dr. Robyn Whittaker. So Dr. Robyn Whittaker and I have known each other for a few years, also from the PFP space, and she's been involved at Partners for Possibility in different capacities over the years. And her focus at the moment is really about creating spaces and environments to explore deep collaboration amongst different stakeholders from different parts of the education space and beyond that. And her and I promised that my introduction to her would be as brief as possible so that she can share with you herself as she presents with us today what her expertise is and how she uses that to create a world where change is possible. So Robyn, with that, I'm going to hand right over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rosie, and welcome everyone. It is such a delight to be back in a room with so many beloved PFP principals, educators, fellow community members. It's really a privilege and a pleasure, and I'm really delighted to be able to be in conversation with you today. I'm just going to share my screen as well, and we'll pick up from where Rosie left off. And today, really, what we're wanting to discuss is this concept of team leadership. It's a really huge topic, firstly. So the approach that we're going to take today is to look at team leadership and how to really create an environment of safe and brave space, and to create the opportunity within teams for people to shine and for teams to really step into a culture that allows for everybody to bring their best gifts, and to shift the thinking about what team leadership means from a hierarchical one and into a real sense of a team as an ecosystem of participant partners. And so it gives me great pleasure to be able to have that conversation with you today. I do hope that we're going to be able to have as much of a conversational forum as is possible, because there is an enormous amount of wisdom in the room. And the wisdom in the room is really far more powerful than any theoretical framework can be, specifically when we're talking about specific leadership environments or specific team environments, namely those in education. And so what I'd love to do, just to get us connected, allow for our voices to be heard, allow for us to connect with each other and continue to build the relationships that make this Partners for Possibility network so increasingly powerful as time goes along, is invite us into breakaway rooms. We'll invite you into rooms of between 4 and 5 people, and we will have 10 minutes to connect with each other, which means that we need to be quite quick in how we answer the questions. But we do want to hear who you are and where you are from. So in your groups, please share as an introduction, who are you? Where are you from? What does leadership and team leadership mean to you? And then something that really helps you just land into your own personal experience and memory. Who taught you or inspired your current leadership practice? And bearing in mind, leadership, particularly in the education space, is such a vast arena. So anybody who is an educator really has a leadership role in some form or another, because they are working with groups of people. And so, Selwyn, if we can, just to welcome everyone again and ask you to go into your breakaway rooms. Let's have 10 minutes in that space, and then we'll come back together and really start exploring this topic. While we are waiting for the breakaway rooms to open, if anybody would like to just unmute and say hi quickly into the broader group, and just introduce yourself while we have a couple of seconds of free space. Wonderful. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that and that you had an opportunity to connect with some of our colleagues on the call. What's really wonderful about these virtual calls is that suddenly we're able to connect with people right around the country and in very different roles. And I think there's just such richness to be found in that, you know, the comparison and listening into each other's experiences. And so just to discuss quickly, or to give you a framework for the discussion today, the flow of the conversation, we're going to start with a little bit of thinking about the tightrope of team management, this need to hold in tension the different elements of working with groups of people. Then we're going to look at a couple of very, very simple thoughts around centering self. We're going to look at the concept of moving from staff to teams, what it means to hold space, and a few little thoughts around holding space and what a difference it makes when space is well held to the dynamics of the team. And then lastly, and very briefly, it's almost an introduction to a new topic, looking at this concept of learning ecosystems. Because I think it is really team management is the first step in learning how to build a learning ecosystem. And so to start with, part of the challenge with team management, team leadership, anything that involves the word leadership, it is a challenge because we are increasingly moving into a time of understanding that our own comprehension of the word leadership may need to shift. But the balancing act that is a challenge when you are in a position of managing and leading groups of people is this tension between the need to support and develop the purpose of the team, and at the same time manage and direct the practice, what the team is doing and what the team needs to achieve. The need to balance care, so care for the people in the team with growth and correction. So part of growth is the ability to discipline or correct and to manage things that are not going so well. And then intention is also held this need to develop culture with the need to also support increasing levels of capability to grow people's skills. And part of the challenge is that this is not a static balance. So it's not like you get it, it's dynamic. It keeps on shifting between all of these various elements of what needs to be achieved for that team to function optimally. And key to that balance, the balance doesn't come in on the things on the end of the pole. It doesn't come in the weight that comes through the purpose care culture arm or the practice growth capability arm. The balance comes in the center. It comes in the ability of the person holding these things in tension, or the group sometimes it's a group holding them in tension, to maintain their intent, to maintain their own inner sense of balance, calm, capacity to handle this cycling dynamic tension between the things that need to be cared for and achieved. And so the first element that I'd like for us to think about together, and this is a really important element, as far in my experience, there is no ability to lead others unless there is an ability to have insight and to understand and to spend time on your own inner world and on understanding and caring for your purpose and intent and how that shows up in the world. And so really to start our conversation, what I'd like for us to discuss together is how we can go about caring for our own intent. And listed on this slide are a few extraordinarily simple practices. These are very, very simple practices. Many of you on this call are established and experienced leaders. You've had years and years of experience in leading teams, and I'm sure that you will concur that that this moment of understanding that how I am being and feeling in myself actually is the pivot point for how I am being and managing my team. There are many more ways to look after your own inner intent, but these are a couple to start and maybe to integrate. So the best way to start habits is with something tiny and really easy to do, and that doesn't take a ton of time. So the three that I've listed here are the concept of daily journaling. Daily journaling is extremely powerful. If you don't like writing, you can doodle or draw. It has a very similar effect. Or you can find another way that allows you to, you can almost just, it helps to have this mind-hand connection. So the doodling is almost a way of allowing your mind free to think. And as you think, allowing that to translate into something drawn. How to practice daily journaling in the simplest and easiest possible way is not to attach any particular meaning to it. It's not writing lists. It's not thinking about what you have to do. It's not even thinking back over what has happened, although it can be. It's literally a practice of as close to the time that you get up in the morning. But if you can't manage that, at least to find a 5-minute period, a 10-minute period early on in the day where you can sit down uninterrupted and take a pen and have a book or a piece of, it can just be a piece of paper, but it helps to have a specific book that you keep, and just take that pen and without thinking about what you are going to write, to start writing, and to write 3 pages without stopping, without pausing, and with no need to ever read it again. It's a way of dumping what's happening in your mind and allowing it to bypass your analytical brain and really allowing your subconscious to have a sense of relief. The second exercise is very simple. It can be done in less than a minute. It's quite good to take about 2 minutes to do it, but it can literally be done in less than a minute. It can be done between meetings. If you find yourself coming out of a very stressful meeting and having to go into another engagement with someone else and you're feeling very flustered, you can use this particular breathing exercise. It's very simple. We're going to practice it just now before we go into our next breakaway room. It's called box breathing. And all that is required is that you find a little bit of a quiet, still spot. You can literally go into the bathroom, close the cubicle door, stand behind the door, and do this exercise for a minute. And what you do is you take a deep breath in, you hold that breath you take a deep breath in for 4 seconds, you hold the breath for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, you hold that for 4 seconds, inhale again for 4, and you repeat the cycle at least 3 times. So it shouldn't take you more than a minute or 2, and it will completely change your physiological state. It will activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming nervous system, and it will give you that sense of centeredness. We'll practice that just now together. And then the last thing, which I really would encourage, and many of you who have been through the PFP program know that this is a key part of what Partners for Possibility offers, is this ability to step into a peer support network. And a peer support network is really a group of trusted friends and colleagues with whom you can regularly come into a space with the intention of thinking together, talking together, supporting each other without judgment, with the ability to hear and listen to each other, not even to offer advice, just a space to be heard by human beings who care about you. It helps if you are in quite a rigorous leadership position, that at least some of those colleagues have similar experiences, but it's not 100% necessary. So my frame is always this concept of the circle of 7. Find 7 people and invite them into relationship, meet regularly, preferably if you can, once a week, once every 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be long. It can be virtual, but at least once a month, that you have a space to debrief and to be cared and supported. So before we go into our next breakaway room, and I have brought our next breakaway room really close because I believe that this element of self-care is something that we need to attend to and we need to create a bit of focus around. But before we go into that space, what I'd like to invite you to do is let's just practice this breathing exercise as we go into the next breakaway room. So Selwyn, you can start to set the breakaway rooms up. We'll look for 3 to 4 people in each breakaway room. And the breakaway rooms will not be extremely long. They will be about, we can have 10-minute breakaway room again. So we can set those up meantime. As we're waiting for those to be set up, my invitation to you now is to practice this breathing exercise with me, and I will guide you through it. So you are welcome to switch your video off if you like. And what I'd like to ask you is to please take a deep breath in. Sit yourself comfortably in your chair. If you can take your shoes off, you are welcome to take your shoes off. Sit yourself comfortably into your chair. Feel the soles of your feet resting against the ground beneath you and against this holding space of the earth below us, this solid space. Feel your back lengthening. Relax your arms, relax your shoulders, relax your neck. Hold your hands very lightly with the palms open and facing upwards in your lap. And together, let's go into a cycle of breathing. So I invite you to take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. Breathe in for 4. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. And then with the final breath in, you can open your eyes and feel yourself back in your chair. And just take note of how your heart feels, how your body feels, and how your mind feels. And then what we'd like to do is taking that sense of calm, which I hope that you have, into these rooms together, to go into breakaway rooms again, and to talk with each other, to share with each other, giving each other equal opportunity to share around what self-awareness and self-leadership practices do you have that keep you feeling centered and supported. And really think to the things that you do when you feel very stressed, because these are practices. So if it's walking in a garden, if it's stepping outside and looking up at the sky and just taking that moment to reframe the space that you're in, those are practices that help you. So think about what it is that helps you come back into yourself. And then the second question is to ask, do you have a peer support network that assists you in growing this sense of self-leadership and centeredness? And if so, how does that work? And not all of you may have that, but if you don't, perhaps you can talk about who might you feel would be possible to invite into such a network. All right, Selwyn, may I ask if you could just post those 2 questions into the chat group? I hope that you have them on your side, but if you could
Yes,
just post
I
them into
do,
the chat
Robyn.
group. Thank
I
you.
do. Rosie's already posted it in the chat. Excellent.
Oh,
Thanks,
she's a
Rosie.
superwoman. Thank you, Rosie.